So, welcome to lecture number 14, where we will be continuing module number 2, income from salaries, under the subject direct taxation. So, under this module, as we know what all is being covered, so today we will be just seeing income from house property. That is only the theory part, because that is what is covered as per your video syllabus. The rest others, the videos are available on YouTube. In case you all want to revise, you all can go through the videos. Lecture numbers are uh, suffixed besides the concept, so you all can accordingly go through that lecture numbers in the YouTube videos. So today we will be covering income from house property, that is only theory part. So students, income from house property, as you all know, is the second amongst the 5 heads of income that we have under the income tax. We have income from salaries, income from house property, income from business and profession, income from capital gains, and income from other sources. So income from house property stands the second amongst all the 5 heads of income. Now, under this income from house property, different sections, as we have seen that in case of income from salaries, we had section 15, 16, and 17. Now, under income from house property, we have section number from 22 to 27 of the Income Tax Act covers all the aspects relating to income from house property. So, moving ahead. So remember, you'll just have theory, so there is no calculation needed. Okay. The process of computation of income under the head income from house property starts with the determination of annual value of the property. Remember, students, that income from house property will be charged based on the annual value of the property. Now, what do we mean by the annual value of the property? It is nothing but the value, that is nothing but the income that can be earned from the property, irrespective whether it is let out or it is not let out on a yearly basis. Yearly basis, as you all already know, whatever income we are earning in the previous year, it is assessed to tax in the assessment year. So remember, in case of house property, the income will be determined. How do you calculate? Like we have seen in case of salaries, how do we calculate the income on which tax has to be paid on salaries? Now, in case of house property, solely the determination of your tax in case of house property will be dependent on your annual value. Now, what is going to be the annual value in different scenarios of property, we will be seeing in the succeeding slides. Second thing is, the annual value of any property comprising of buildings or land pertinent thereto, of which the SSC is the owner, is chargeable to tax under the head income from house property. Obviously, students, that if any income has to be charged under income from house property, it should consist of a building or maybe a land attached to a building, okay, where the SSA is supposed to be the owner of that property. Now, a tenant is not going to pay the income. Obviously, a tenant is not going to earn the income from the building or land. It is the owner who is going to earn the income. Therefore, the owner is liable to pay tax under income from house property. But like I told you, income from house property, the property should be either a building or a land attached thereto. But there are certain exceptions. When I say certain exceptions, which means that even if that particular land or building is owned by a SSA, yet it will not be chargeable to tax under house property. So what are the situations? Let us see. Annual value of the following properties are chargeable under the head profits and gains of business or profession. Means even if those property comprises of building or land attached with, still it will not be chargeable under the head house property. It is going to be chargeable under the head profits and gains of business or profession. So what are those cases? First one is portion of the property is occupied by the SSC for the purpose of any business or profession carried on by him. And second is properties of an SSC engaged in the business of letting out of the property. So suppose if you are having a property which is used mainly for the purpose of carrying out a business or profession, or your business is to let out the properties, real estate business, where properties are being let out. So there the main business of the SSC is to let out the property. Therefore, the income that he's generating from that property will be charged under the head profits and gains of business and profession, and not from the income under house property. So I hope you'll have understood the difference, that if any property where building or land is attached, okay, that property will be normally charged under income from house property. But if it is that particular property is used for business or profession, or the main business of the SSC is to let out the properties, then it will not be chargeable under the head house property. It will be chargeable under the head income from profits and gains of business or profession. Second, there are certain conditions for chargeability. So what are the conditions? There are 4 conditions where the income will be chargeable under the head income from house property only if these conditions are there. Property should consist of any land or building appurtenant thereto. Now when I say any building, now any building means it does not only include the residential buildings, but also it will include factory buildings, shops, offices, maybe godowns, or any other premises. Okay, students. So when I say any building, it means not only the residential buildings. Even I can give for, even I can let out a factory building or a commercial building, commercial premises. Correct? Now, next door, land appurtenant thereto. Now, what is the meaning of land appurtenant? It is nothing means, it means land connected with the building, or a land which is attached with the building. It means land appurtenant thereto. Now it can be a land connected with the building like a garden, it can be a garage. Okay, but one thing that you'll need to understand in point number 1 is that if it is a vacant land, if suppose I'm having a vacant land and I'm letting out the vacant land, do you all understand what is the meaning of letting out? Giving on rent or giving on lease is nothing but letting out. So if I'm letting out any vacant land, when I say vacant land means it is not having any building attached with it. So whenever I am letting out the vacant land, it is not going to be taxable under the head income from house property. It is going to be either taxable under income from other sources or income from business or profession, depending upon the business of the SSC, as the case may be. So I hope you all understood what is the meaning of property should consist of any building or land attached thereto. Next, SSC must be the owner of the property. Obviously, if a property has to be charged to tax under income from house property, the SSC is supposed to be the owner of the property. Now, what do you mean by the meaning of owner? So what do you mean by owner? Owner is nothing but he's a person who is entitled to receive income from the property, and he has the right to receive the income under the income from the property that he is holding. And ownership may also mean deemed ownership. Now, what is the meaning of deemed ownership? We'll be seeing in the succeeding slides. But ownership does not only mean that if it is in my name, then I'm the owner. There are certain scenarios of deemed ownership which also is covered under the definition of owner, so that we will be seeing. And one more thing, students, as you all know that the income in the previous year is assessed to tax in the assessment year. Therefore, the SSC must be the owner of the property in the previous year. Previous year that is earning the income. Suppose in the assessment year he is not the owner, that is immaterial, because the main thing that is the SSE must be owner of the property in the previous year, irrespective whether he is owner or not in the assessment year, yet he will be liable to charge under the tax under the head income from house property because he is the owner in the previous year and income in the previous year is assessed to tax in the assessment year. Next, use of property. As I already told you all that the property should not be used for the purpose of carrying out any business or profession, because it will be not charged under this head. It will be charged under the head business or profession. And second is he should not let out the property. His business should not be a business of letting out of property, because again it will not be charged under the head income from house property. It will be charged under the head income from business or profession. Then what is going to be the use of property? The property then may be used for any purpose. Okay. But only you should remember it should not be used for the purpose of carrying out any business, or the business of the SSE must not be letting out of the property. Next, property held as stock in trade. So what do you mean by property held as stock in trade? Now again, stock in trade means it will be chargeable to tax as income from business or profession. So as I already told you all that to be charged, if any income has to be charged under the head house property, the annual value of the house property will be charged under this head. So the calculation is based on the annual value, correct? Now, if the property is held as stock in trade, what is going to be the annual value of the property? See, every property has an annual value, correct? But if that property is held as stock in trade, the annual value is always going to be nil. More about annual value we'll be seeing in the succeeding slides. So I hope you'll have understood that if any income has to be charged under the head income from house property, first of all, what should be? There should be a building and land attached with it. The SSE should be the owner of it in the previous year. The property can be used for any purpose, but it should not be used for the purpose of business or profession, or for the business of letting out of the property. And the property which is held as stock in trade, the annual value is going to be nil because it is used for the purpose of business. So we have completed the conditions for chargeability. Next, what we need to understand is how do we usually calculate income from the head house property. So in my first slide itself, I have told you all that the income on the house property is always being determined on the basis of the annual value. And I have already told you all the meaning of annual value. That is, it is nothing but the income. Annual value is nothing but the income which can be earned from the property. So what is the expected income that can be earned by the property is nothing but the annual value of the property. Okay. If it is let out. So obviously our calculation will begin from gross annual value less municipal taxes paid. Now what do you mean by we are going to just study the terminology of all these items, okay? Because only theory is covered. Since theory is covered, you just need to know the different aspects. So what is the gross, what is the municipal taxes paid? What is the meaning of municipal taxes paid? Usually the municipal authorities, they levy the municipal taxes on the house property. Okay, so whatever taxes is paid by the owner in respect of the house property that he is owning to the municipal corporation or to the municipal authorities, it will be given as a deduction, because you'll know that income minus the expenses, the balance income is chargeable to tax. So similar an expense in case of income from head house property is nothing but the municipal taxes that the owner is paying. So gross annual value less municipal taxes paid, you get net annual value. Now on the net annual value, actually the tax is to be charged, but government has given certain deductions which are standard deductions under the head income from house property, which is under section 24. We already know that under the head income from salaries, we derive at gross salary. But do we charge the tax on gross salary? No. There are certain deductions given by the government, by the act under section 16. So under salaries, we had three deductions, correct? Standard deduction, then we had entertainment allowance, we had professional tax. On the same lines, under income from head house property, we have two deductions which are given under section 24. So deduction means reduction in the net annual value and the balance will be chargeable to tax under the head income from house property. So there are two deductions, that is 30% of net annual value. Whatever is the net annual value derived, 30% of that will be a deduction given, which is fixed, which is standard. Okay, and next is interest on borrowed capital. Now, what is the meaning of interest on borrowed capital? In detail, we'll be seeing in the succeeding slides. We have a separate slide for it. So when we deduct these two deductions, we get income from head house property. So to put it in a nutshell, remember, income from house property will be always determined based on the annual value of the property, which is consisting of building or land attached thereto. And such land and building should not be used for the purpose of business or profession. Okay, so moving ahead. Now, what if any house property situated outside India? So if I am an SSC, okay, and my house property is situated outside India, whether the income that I'm receiving from a house property situated outside India, will it be liable to India, is in India, is what we have to check. See, students, you all know that the residential status of an SSC can either be, he can be a resident, he can be a non-resident. And if he is a resident, he can be resident and ordinarily resident and resident but not ordinarily resident. So let us see the first case. Suppose if he is a resident in India. So suppose I am a resident, my status is a resident in India, and whatever income I'm getting from the property which is outside India, okay, and whatever income I'm generating from a property which is outside India, since I am a resident in India, such income will be chargeable to tax in India, even if such income is not brought into India. So I'll just read this. In case of a resident in India, which means resident and ordinary resident in case of individuals and HUF, income from properties situated outside India is taxable whether such income is brought into India or not. So remember students, if a SSC status is resident, if his status is tagged as a resident in India, then whatever income is earning from a property which is outside India will be chargeable to tax. Remember this. Next, suppose what if his status is a non-resident or resident but not ordinary resident in India? Then whatever income he is generating from a property outside India will be taxable in India only and only if that income is received in India. Received in India means that income is brought into India. Then only it will be chargeable to tax. Otherwise, it will not be chargeable to tax. So this is the different situation where we are seeing if the house property is situated outside India. Next, I told you all that the determination of income under the head house property is mainly and solely based on the annual value. And what is annual value? We know that how much income that property can generate. That is the annual value. So it is solely based on the annual value. Therefore, we need to see what has to be the annual value for different types of properties. Now, in case of house property, there are two things. One is self-occupied property and one is let-out property. Now, when I say let-out property, means a property that is given on rent or lease to some other person, to a tenant to stay in. When I say self-occupied property, means that property is not given on rent or is not being let out and is being used by the SSE himself. So this is self-occupied, means the SSE is occupying the property himself, and let out means where the SSE is giving the property and not occupying himself. So let us see what is going to be the annual value in case of different scenarios and different kinds of property. So where the property is self-occupied for own residence or unoccupied throughout the previous year owing to his employment, business or profession carried on at any other place and residing at any other place in a building not belonging to him, its annual value will be nil, provided no other benefit is derived by the owner from such property. So what are they telling? That when you calculate income from house property, okay, if any SSC is having a self-occupied property, as I told you, self-occupied property is a property that is occupied by the SSC himself. So suppose if I am having a house, okay, in Belgaum, but I am working in Pune. So my house in Belgaum is unoccupied. No one is staying in that house. Why? Because for employment purpose, I have gone to Pune. Correct? Okay. Either if it is this situation, or if it is a situation where I am doing business or working in Belgaum itself and occupying the house that I have in Belgaum for my own residence, then in that case, it becomes a self-occupied property and the annual value will be nil. Now, if the annual value will be nil, obviously income will be, when you have to take as annual value will be nil, obviously the income chargeable under the head income from house property will either be nil or either it will be negative, since you have to pay multiple taxes. So always remember, annual value in case of one self-occupied property is going to be nil. So I hope you all have understood what is the meaning of annual value. Now, moving ahead, annual value of deemed to be let out property. Now, what do you mean by deemed to be let out? See, here what did we see is annual value of one self-occupied property. Now, I may have n number of properties where I have not given it to let out, like I have not given it for rent for any tenant to stay in. So what they are telling, that annual value of one self-occupied property is going to be nil. And what is going to be the annual value in case of those properties which are self-occupied but you have more than one? So annual value of deemed to be let out property. So what do you mean by deemed to be let out? Deemed to be let out means actually it is not let out, but you will assume it to be let out. So what are those situations? If more than one property is so self-occupied or unoccupied. So if you're having more than one self-occupied property, only one among that, the annual value will be nil. Okay. If more than one property is self-occupied or unoccupied, then it will be considered as deemed to be let out property. The SSC can claim benefit of nil annual value in respect of any one property at his option, and the other properties would be deemed to be let out in respect of which expected rent would be the gross annual rent. Now students, what is expected rent is? Expected rent is nothing but the rent which is expected for that property to generate. Suppose if that property would be let out, what rent that property would actually generate is going to be the expected rent. So, and that is going to be taken as the gross annual rent. So remember students, if you have more than one self-occupied property, only one property, the annual value of which you can take it as nil, and the remaining properties, but it is totally on your option which property you want to take it as nil and which you want to take it as deemed to be let out. And in case of other properties, the expected rent what the property can generate will be nothing but the gross annual rent. Next, annual value where the property is held in stock in trade. This we have already discussed in the conditions of chargeability, that where any property is held as stock in trade, Okay, the annual value of that property is going to be taken as nil. This we have already seen. Let me read this. Where property consisting of any building or land appurtenant thereto is held as stock in trade, and the whole or any part of the property is not let out during the whole or any part of the previous year, the annual value of such property or part of the property for a period up to 1 year from the end of financial year in which completion certificate of completion of construction of the property is obtained from the competent authority shall be taken as nil. So in short, what you'll need to remember is when any property is held as stock in trade, okay, either the part of it or the entire uh, set the entire building or the land pertinent thereto is not let out. Okay, it is unoccupied and it is not let out, and the completion certificate has been obtained from the contractor or the competent authority, then you have to take the annual value as nil and do the calculation of income under the head house property. Next, I told you all that there are deductions from the annual value. Now, deductions under the head income from house property, we saw that there are two deductions. Two deductions under section 24A and 24B. So under section 24A will be 30% of net annual value, which I have already told you all how to derive at the net annual value is nothing but gross annual value less municipal taxes paid by the owner. Then you get the you get the net annual value on which 30% you need to take as a deduction. And second deduction is interest on borrowed capital. Now, what do you mean by interest on borrowed capital? That is, if you're taking any loan, if any loan is taken by the owner, okay, for the purpose of acquiring the property, for the purpose of constructing the property, for the purpose of repairing the property, for the purpose of reconstruction, then whatever interest he's paying on the loan for which for the purpose of this house property, he can claim it as a deduction. So let me read. Interest on borrowed capital covered under section 24 subsection B. Interest payable on loans borrowed for the purpose of acquisition, construction, repairs, renewal or reconstruction can be claimed as a deduction. Okay. Now there is pre-construction interest. Now what do you mean by pre-construction interest? When you have taken a loan, okay, and you're paying the interest before the construction of a property, house property has been completed, or before the property is acquired, you're taking a loan for the purpose of house property and you're paying the interest. So it is called pre-construction interest. So government has given certain limits up to which you can claim deduction under pre-construction interest. So let us see that. Interest for the period prior to previous year in which the property is acquired or construction is completed. So it is called pre-construction. That is before constructing, whatever interest you are paying. Is it liable to deduction? So pre-construction interest is allowable as a deduction in 5 equal installments from the previous year of completion of construction or acquisition. So whatever interest, pre-construction interest is there, it will be allowed as a deduction only in 5 equal installments, and that too from the previous year in which the construction is completed or your acquisition is completed of that particular house property. Now let us see what if that construction is for a let out property. So the whole of the amount of interest on borrowed capital payable during the previous year and apportionment pre-construction interest without any ceiling limit would be allowed as deduction. So if it is a let out property that you are acquiring or constructing, then whatever interest you're paying on the borrowed capital, it is going to be completely allowed as a deduction without any statutory limit, without any ceiling limit. Next, what if it is a self-occupied property? So if it is a self-occupied property, you have to check whether the loan is taken on or after 1/4/99 or whether the loan is taken is taken before 1/4/99. Now, suppose if the loan is taken on or after 1/4/99, then you have to check whether the construction is completed within 5 years, and the maximum deduction that can be given is of rupees 2 lakh. So let me read this. Interest on loan taken for acquisition or construction of house on or after 1/4/1999, and the same was completed within 5 years from the end of financial year in which the capital was borrowed. Interest paid or payable subject to maximum of 2 lakhs. So maximum deduction you will get of 2 lakhs if it is a self-occupied property and loan is taken on or after 1/4/1999. Now, suppose if the loan is taken before 1/4/1999, in case of loan for acquisition or construction taken prior to 1/4/1999 or loan taken for repair, renovation, reconstruction, the interest paid or payable subject to maximum of 30,000, including apportionment pre-construction interest. So remember, students, in case of self-occupied property, there is a ceiling limit on the interest on borrowed capital. That is, if loan is taken after 1/4/1999 and within 5 years it is being completed, then ceiling limit 2 lakh. And if the loan is taken before 1/4/1999, ceiling limit maximum 30,000 deduction can be taken. So let us understand this in the form of chart. Okay. Now, deductions allowed from net annual value. We know that the deduction is, first deduction is 30% of net annual value, which requires not much calculation. The second deduction is interest on borrowed capital. So that is what we will be discussing through this chart. Now, if it is a let out property, okay, you get a standard deduction of 30% of NAV, which is standard, and interest on borrowed capital is fully allowed. If it is a let out property or deemed to be let out property, the interest on borrowed capital, there is no ceiling limit. Fully, whatever interest you're paying, it will be allowed as a deduction. Next, if it is a self-occupied property, interest on borrowed capital, okay, what you have to see is, where loan is taken for repair, renewal, reconstruction of house property, maximum ceiling will be 30,000. Now, here when I say repair, renewal, reconstruction, it does not mean fresh construction. It does not mean fresh acquisition. It just means doing renovation to the house property. So if you're taking any loan for the renovation of house property, maximum deduction you can claim is 30,000 if that property is a self-occupied property. Now, where the loan is taken for the acquisition or construction of house property, then you have to see the date on which the loan is taken. If the loan is taken before 1/4/1999, you know that the maximum deduction you will get is 30,000. If the loan is taken after 1/4/1999, then you have to see whether the construction is completed within 5 years from the financial year in which the capital was taken, plus the certificate from the lender specifying interest payable is being received. If these conditions are not fulfilled, then the maximum you can claim is 30,000. If these two conditions are fulfilled, the maximum you can claim is 2 lakh. So this is more important in case of income from house property, that what is going to be the deduction in case of interest on borrowed capital in respect of self-occupied property. So I hope you'll have understood, students. Okay. Next is inadmissible deductions. Now, what do you mean by inadmissible deductions? Means this will not be allowed as a deduction under the head income from house property. So whatever interest chargeable under this act, which is payable outside India. Now, if any interest loan you're taking from a financial institution which is outside India and you're paying interest outside India, it will not be allowed as a deduction only and only if tax has not been paid or deducted from such interest. Usually there is TDS. If it is TDS is not deducted, then you cannot claim it as a deduction. And in respect of which there is no person in India who may be treated as an agent. So you've taken a loan, but there is no agent to represent it in India. So in these two cases, even if the interest you're paying it will not be allowed as a deduction. So these are inadmissible deduction in case of calculating income from house property. Next, now we have seen in case of what is going to be the annual value in case of we have seen in case of one self-occupied property, in the case of more than one self-occupied property. Okay, now let us see what if it is co-owned property. Now what does it mean by co-owned property? Where the property is owned by more than one owner, where there is more than one owner to a property, it is called co-owned property. So what is going to be the annual value in case of co-owned property? So if the property is a self-occupied property, the annual value of the property of each co-owner is going to be nil, and each co-owner shall be entitled to a deduction of 30,000 or 20 lakh, 2 lakh, as the case may be, on account of interest on borrowed capital. So remember, if there is a self-occupied property which is jointly owned, where it has more than one owner, okay, so each owner will have the annual value of the property as nil, and each owner shall be entitled to the deduction on borrowed capital. Now, what if the property is a let out property and it is co-owned? When I say co-owned, means it has more than one owner. Usually, many a times, the property is jointly taken by two or more persons in some situations. So it is in respect of those properties. Now, in case of let out property, the income from such property shall be computed as if the property is owned by one owner, and thereafter the income so computed shall be apportioned among each co-owner as per their specific share. Now, obviously, when a property is jointly taken, a share in respect of different owners is being decided what is going to be the share of a particular owner in that particular property. So in case of let out property, you have to calculate based on whatever rent is being received and all. You are going to calculate the income from house property, and that income you're going to apportion between different owners based on their specific share. So this is the treatment that you're going to give in case of co-owned property. Next, as I told you all, that deemed ownership. Now, what is deemed ownership? As I already told you all, in the chargeability of conditions for chargeability, I told you all that the SSC must be the owner of the property, and he can also be called as a deemed owner of the property. So, who is called as a deemed owner of the property? The following persons, though not are the legal owners of the property, are still the deemed owners of the property. Deemed owner means though they are not the ownership is not in their name, yet they will be assumed that they are the owners. So what are the different situations? What is the meaning of deemed ownership we are looking into? First, transferor of the property, where the property is transferred to the spouse or the minor children, except minor married daughter, without adequate consideration. Many a times what happens, in order to escape income tax, what SSCs used to do, what people used to do is, they used to transfer their property either in the name of their spouse or in the name of the minor child, just to avoid income to be taxed under their head. But such persons who are transferring the property, okay, without adequate consideration. When I say without adequate consideration means, if they're transferring the property, suppose if the property is of 2 crores, but they're transferring the property on only 1 lakh. So it is not an adequate consideration. Actually, the value of the property is 2 crores. So that means they're transferring for the purpose of evasion of tax, for avoiding to pay tax. So therefore, here the owner is going to be considered as the SSC himself who is transferring. So SSC himself will be deemed to be the owner of the property and not the spouse or the minor child. Suppose if it is transfer for adequate consideration, suppose the spouse is transferring 2 crores to the account of the SSC, then it is an adequate consideration. Otherwise, it is an inadequate. If it is for inadequate consideration, the transferor himself will be deemed to be the owner of the property. Next, holder of impartible estate. Now, the owner of the impartible estate shall be deemed to be the individual owner of all the properties comprised in that estate. Suppose if there is a big property which cannot be separated, okay, so that individual owner will be considered as the owner of all the properties that are that are being covered under that particular estate. Next, member of a cooperative society. So obviously cooperative societies, they have a particular property. Okay, so the member will be deemed to be the owner of the property, cannot escape saying that it is a property belonging to the cooperative society. He will deemed to be the member of the um property held by the cooperative society. Person in possession of a property. Now, any person who is allowed to take or retain possession of any building, okay, for the performance of the contract, okay, shall be deemed to be the owner of that particular building. Because any person who is in possession of the property, suppose there is some property which has no particular name, and any person is holding that property, okay, and he is possessing that property, so he will be deemed to be the owner of the property. Since the property details are not there and he is possessing that property, he is utilizing that property, he will be deemed to be the owner of that particular property. Persons having right in a property for a period not less than 12 years. So if any person is having a right in a property for a period not less than 12 years, so for more than 12 years a person is having a property, so he will be deemed to be the owner of the property unless it is transferred with adequate consideration. So all these are the situations where the deemed ownership concept will apply. Though they are not the legal owners, yet they will deem to be the owners of the property. Next. Thank you, students. We have completed the module 2.